My colleague Richard is going to be speaking with Morgan from Newsquest about revenue diversification. So hopefully we've launched it.
Thank you very much. I'm Richard Chambers, Head of Publisher Partnerships Team for Northern Europe for Outbrain. And I'm sat here having a lovely chat, potentially, I'm sure it will be, with Morgan Stevenson, the Don of regional media in the UK. I think that's probably a fair description. You've worked at a number of the largest regional players.
Set of steak knives. I've done the top 4, yeah.
Yeah, and you
just bought number 5, so
doing very, very well.
Might get a cuddly toy.
Obviously found your place.
I have found my place. Yeah. Usually having a Negroni, which not too far now, folks. I don't think.
No, yeah, this is like the death bit, isn't it? Because everyone just wants to get to their drink. So hopefully it won't be too painful. Our chat today focuses on the challenges and opportunities in revenue diversification in publishing. And this is certainly something we hear a lot about from the publishers that we work with day in, day out. In a recent survey of 250 of our partners, 70% of those partners said that this is the year that they're going to really think about how they're going to diversify their revenue streams. And I think we've just been hearing a lot about that already, and Randy really pointed to that in her presentation. So this really feels like this is out of the now. And in a nutshell, this deals with the fact that I think for media owners to have sustainability in the open web, there is a need to diversify revenue streams so that they are not putting all their eggs in the advertising basket. And again, I think we've heard a lot about that already. So the other thing is introducing all of these different revenue lines entails lots of complexity into a business, not least the competing KPIs of the different stakeholders who all want to hit their own new revenue lines that they've just been given by their CRO. So there's lots of complexity that goes with it. But rather than theorise about it, as we've been doing already, I thought it would be a great idea to actually have a chat with Morgan. And I'll shut up in a minute and ask him some questions. And we can find out a little bit more about how this is manifesting itself in the world of a huge publishing business. So thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to see you all.
So first question, and I hope you don't mind me asking such a big room of people, how is it that your businesses and your publications are making money currently?
Very good question.
Thank you.
We, pre-pandemic, it was very much, we love the ad dollar. Post-pandemic, we've tried to open up new revenue streams through subscription. But principally, being hyper-local publishers, we are very much in our digital transformation trying to become the local trusted advisor for small business owners to navigate how to market their own business. And that has led us, like a lot of other publishers, particularly regional publishers, to start offering the whole gamma of digital solutions like DMS, digital marketing services. And that's not easy, they're more complex, there's not a huge margin if you are a reseller. So the value as a publisher, having your own audience and how you can merge those solutions together is the opportunity, but it's also the tough task of having a large, well-equipped sales team that is capable of advising and building the trust with those local businesses. That's the human challenge. As a quality publisher, and it's very important to get that business model right, sustainable, because the responsibility is there to continue the investment in local democracy through our phenomenal journalistic reach and help those communities that we serve thrive. Which is why pandemic was an opportunity really to thrust ourselves into opening up subscription opportunities, and that is now widely across our sites. But it's not easy. It's trying to get a lot of people to see the value in paying for an access isn't easy. You've got the BBC, that's a free access. It's pretty good regional coverage. So it's finding what are those experiences, what are the other attributes that we can offer, rather than just forcing users through paywalls and registration walls. What are the other assets that we can give? And again, that means investment, that means going down into new types of video, leveraging local sport is a great example. The Herald in Scotland in particular have opened a number of initiatives tapping into the Celtic Rangers fan base. We've got YouTube channels, podcasts. That requires new skills, that requires investment. So it is very difficult, very challenging to do that across 200 sites. So It's not easy.
How does that work? How is the interface with the huge network of sites that you have, all with editors and all with their own teams of people? How are you kind of like guiding those businesses through this journey? Because it is a journey, and there's a heck of a lot to be done in order to get people there.
It's very data driven. We want it to be very data driven. The truth's in the data and the interpretation, but it's hard to bring all that data together and turn it into useful insight. And we're not fully there yet. I think we've still got quite a lot of work to do to really get underneath, particularly our user data, to really have a really strong understanding to the level that Keystone looks to be trying to deliver. What is the perfect experience for each user? That is the kind of goal that we're all trying to achieve. And what might be more advantageous or beneficial as an experience for a subscriber is very different to someone who is going to fly by once a month, that in theory we should probably absolutely ad bomb them to our heart's content, because we're not going to see the bastards for another 30 days. So that, it's really hard. And then you've got to apply that across 200 sites. That sounds really mental, but actually there's a lot of common threads. What people like to read in Newport is very similar to what they like in Norwich. So it's not as crazy, but actually what's hard is trying to sieve through those individual audiences to find nuggets that can work across the whole network.
And that's an interesting point, because obviously there's a huge user base across all of these different publications. And how are you deciding, for that user base, which user should be surfaced, which particular offer? Are you building offers around the wide user base, or is it just a subs offer is the thing that you're just trying to get to everybody?
We definitely categorise, or we have started the journey to categorise it based on size. That's pretty rudimentary, actually, when you think about it. But what we're trying to get underneath more is certain content channels, and looking at users. Particularly, you'll find certain content topics, you get different behavioural trips. Sport is a great example. That then manifests itself up more regionally. You can start to adapt your editorial teams to fit around that insight. You can certainly fit your commercial teams around it. But then when it comes to real estate, because of the size of sites that we have, you are more restricted. What I mean by that is we have one unified template. And so yes, you can leverage different delivery mechanisms, ad servers, subscription platforms to deliver your marketing messages, and we can adapt the gating and change and see what different tests can get to. You are ultimately trying to pull all these data sources from multiple places. That is bloody hard.
Yeah.
And you need the people to interrogate it. So that's the big challenge, because you want to get that personalized delivery mechanism. You want to try lots of things. You also want to kill them really fast as well, because they can zap resources quite quickly. So having a very clear but confident view on what is it we're going to deliver to this particular user. We look to partners. It's not our skill set to be builders. It's certainly not our skill set to leverage lots of data and be, we don't have a huge team of data scientists. We are owned by Gannett in the States. We have a very strong relationship in leveraging the things that they try and do. But again, the scales are very different. They own the USA Today brand. Local to them is the Arizona national brand. That they don't know the concept really of what local community looks like down in Cornwall when there's 800 people buying a magazine there. So that just gives you a view of how that scale differs.
Yeah. And do you get a sense that by correctly segmenting users, actually users are getting a better experience of a website? Because we know that users come for particular editorial content, but is there an argument to say that actually the right targeted commercial content is also useful and also is an engaging thing for a user?
Definitely. We saw the COP26 opportunity that hosted in Glasgow was a brilliant example of where a lot of the commercial opportunity that we leveraged was very content driven. And as we had a fairly, not a template, I would say, that was built to adapt for those sort of size opportunities, a lot of that content was merged amongst what would be normal editorial. But trying to blend that experiences was part of the job of making that brand feel like it was part of our site and the user experience to be something that wasn't jarring. And we learned a lot from when certain types of content was consumed and there was a great opportunity there where we can see new or emerging topics. The pandemic's a great one, the Queen's passing, mental health now being a wider, more aware challenge within the workplace. They become new content channels that we can start to develop. It's interesting from the Haymarket perspective of re-looking at that taxonomy and seeing how you can be more agile in turning that into new engagement opportunities. So I definitely think that's an area that we're very keen to further develop.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned some subscriptions, which is, I think, a holy grail for lots of publishers, do we, don't we? Are you having success with subscriptions?
Yes.
What are the key things that are getting people to subscribe?
Trust is one, because I think we leverage that engagement of what we call loyal, branded, local, trusted users. We look at that in how often they come to the sites. They want an affinity. We're able to give certain features. Our audience love a puzzle. They love Sudoku. So just by re-engaging that in an app very quickly drove the number of subscribers to go up because
is that the same for all publications?
Yeah, that's an audience that they get their sport hit and then they go and do a little Sudoku. That's insight to the local world. There's the paid for revenue subscriber. There's also the advertiser subscriber, and that was another flip in our view post-pandemic. We didn't just want to have to rebuild our advertising revenues each month or each quarter, and out of the pandemic, listening to our customers, what they really want, they want solutions that in essence, they can't afford to turn off. So we rebuilt a lot of the solutions that, we had a broad spectrum of brilliant things that we could deliver to them, the awareness that we have for our audience. But we also wanted to go, some of that is only okay, it's a bit average, let's stop it. Let's collect the things that work really well, put them on steroids and put them in a subscription package. And that's been another great success. We have gone from pre-pandemic, we didn't have any subscriber style solutions. When 18% of our advertising revenue is now subscriber based. So it's there for a minimum of 12 months. When it comes to budgeting time next year, as we're starting that process now, it's a hell of a lot easier to look at how you're going to perform next year with that there. So that's been a huge win.
Okay. Is there anything that you've tried that you just think doesn't actually got legs at the moment and you need to maybe come back to it at some point in the future? We tried lots of things during the pandemic. We tried to do a kind of Just Eat equivalent. That didn't go very well. That's where we thought trust would be really good to leverage. Again, try to offer something to businesses that couldn't or didn't have the technology or weren't necessarily confident enough to engage with the Just Eat to bring some form of e-commerce delivery to their business during a lockdown. We tried an entry level to e-commerce package, small website, very simple, but could give you e-commerce capability. And it fell flat because actually, whilst that's what their business needed, they were not in a place to understand how to mentally flip their view of their business. I'll give you a great example. The one success we did have was a butcher in Bradford. It's the start of every good joke. He went from massive lockdown sale problems, went off a cliff. He went to building an e-commerce business within the space of 28 days. 28 days, he was doing more business via his new website than he was in any month in the previous 6 months of the pandemic. But he articulated it brilliantly by saying, I'm not a butcher anymore, I'm a meat distributor. Because his day-to-day wasn't what are the chops going to look like, how are we going to present these in the stand, in the shop. It was, how effectively can I package? How can I quickly print my labels? Can I make sure the DHL person arrives ready to send this all out? A lot of businesses struggled with making that mental switch, and we weren't very good. We weren't ready to be that close to them to help them do that. Yeah. It feels like there's a lot of energy needed in terms of this sort of transformation process, like dragging a whole lot of people with you, kicking and screaming, potentially going, well, what about the ad dollar? That's fine, surely. So what have been the kind of the big things that you've had to overcome so far on this journey?
I think it was said just previously in the previous sort of discussion, this idea of being ruthless in what you're going to follow, absolute laser focus on a small handful of priorities, and in there have to be the agreement, because they generally across department, what are the right KPIs that are going to measure success? Because if we in which we've recently found in acquiring another business, there are a lot of projects, a lot of competing departments, a lot of competing KPIs, and in essence they were afraid to turn things off, and you can't sustain it all. We're run very frugally. I'm sure everyone is now finding new ways to reutilize or not have as much investment as they would like. So you've got to be really laser focused on what you follow and what you invest in. So getting clear understanding of what's going to be the measure of success, and that's got to be common across a lot of different departments who aren't always used to it. When editorial teams want to invest in more people, of course they'll deliver more audience. Are they going to deliver audience that we're going to monetize in the most effective way? Versus, do we put that investment in the e-commerce team? Do we put that investment in understanding more of the log data? Because we don't spend enough time on the log data. So it's understanding where are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck? Where is the best juice worth for your squeeze is our new favourite expression.
I guess this is staffing up, isn't it? In a lot of different departments that might not have classically ever had a say in how you're monetizing. In the old days, it would have been, editorial, church and state, bit of commercial, and now you've got probably marketing folk getting involved. You've got a whole range of different people that you've now got to fit into the organisation, and everyone wants to be heard, and everyone's got their KPIs.
Definitely, our local editors, our local journalists would not have known the discrepancy between yields on a crime story versus an Audi special buy, right? They would not have known this 3 years ago, but they know this now. That's through dashboards we've built, information we give. It's helping them make better decisions around, I've got 5 journalists, how do I get the best out of them this week? And when I say the best out of them, how do I drive more subscribers, more registered users, more revenue? How do I get more of their productivity? Where is that going to resonate more with our audience? And they need that. They can't do it. They can't run it the way they used to run it, say 10 years ago, where it's what do I think the front page splash should be? They've got to look at that view.
Yeah. Okay. And how are you kind of bringing this back together and managing it back at HQ with this huge kind of regional business that you have of all these different publications? How in HQ are you kind of like managing this now? All these competing people just wanting a slice of the pie.
I've said the word dashboard too many times already, but it is a single source of truth. That's one. Secondly, we run a lot of business reviews, and for some people they think they're a bit like trying to survive the next 30 days, but they're not. They're designed to challenge local commercial leaders, local editorials to validate where they are on their journey and making sure that they see and we can be clear enough on what their goals are within the strategy of what we're trying to do. And it's in that, I think it's an important session. It's about making sure that there is innovation, there is accountability, there is ownership, and at the same time they're respecting within the mechanics of our business model. They're doing what they can with the resource that they have. But it's important that they see that as coming up with ideas and how they can interpret different opportunities on their own sites and within their own team. So that engagement it's a lot of time. I do probably 2 of those a week. They're about 3 hours long. It's a big chunk of time in the diary, but it's really important to bring those teams together. That's editorial, that would be events, that would be the commercial leaders, the local MDs. That would be quite a lot to be covered, but it's about understanding and getting them to take that ownership of how they're driving that business locally.
Where do you think this kind of goes next? Which kind of things have you got your eye on that might in the future be the things that you can really start nailing a load more revenue on? Is there anything that you're planning sort of a few years down the line?
We definitely want to continue to leverage we call it the runway of, we produce some local or regional high quality magazines. And they are supplementary to our newspapers in terms of hard news. They provide, we feel, a great runway of continuing that conversation with our local advertisers on coming on this digital transition and trusting us to be their partner. That's a continued big one. where we've got an opportunity is magazines have been quite difficult to sort of turn into the same wonderful experience to consume online. So there's one challenge, and that might feed into, I'd like to think, more of our subscriber opportunity. And the other one I think is going to be really interesting with the Keystone opportunity, because it is always looking at that page and going, right, how do we get more from it? Everyone's trying to compete. Everyone wants a house campaign, or how do I get in on those digital subscription ads? How do we get more in front of the user? I've got some e-commerce opportunity. We can get it to every person that we have contact with. You know, they're right, but when it hits the actual user, that's a difficult experience to manage. It's a difficult experience to optimize. So I think finding the right partners, working with what your view of those challenges are. We don't have the same talent and access to the same machine learning and AI that you have.
Yeah.
So the partner selection, I think, is really important. And we're always looking to see who are the next and the right partners to be with.
So how do you go through that process? Is it a case of coming to events like this, or is it people coming
Yeah, whoever buys us the best Negroni goes straight to the list. That's all I'm looking for. It's not an easy process. We're proud to be part of the One Excel Partnership Cooperative with other superstars in the room, and that's to help take our if you combine Newsquest's scale versus some of our national representation, we don't cover much, but we partner with other regional publishers and we build our scale up. We want a solution that fits all of us, because we're trying to build out that scale as much as possible. So that's an important part of our decision making. Trust is another one. If you're going to give someone access to your page and lots of it for them to make the decision what should be delivered at that time, you need an awful lot of trust. And so we like to go and meet the individuals there, understand what the tech is, trial it. It tends to be an iterative approach, because again, that builds up the trust in the right way. And we try and rob as much insight from Gannett as we can. That's another trick.
That's a fair one, I think.
Yeah, few late conference calls with America to see what they're doing.
A final one from me. Reasons to be excited. We've obviously been going through a bit of a tough time. The next sort of few months might be a bit rocky, but looking a bit further into the future, what makes you excited about your business?
I think we've got a lot to be excited for. I think the pandemic was a great forced digital transformation moment. I think all of us had to make very hard decisions. So I do look at it as we are in build mode. I know the economy isn't brilliant and it puts a downer on things in terms of perhaps what we're going to be doing in the next 6 months. But I think generally speaking, there's a lot of opportunity. I'm very excited about this. How do we optimize that experience for the user? That's the biggie. Getting underneath users is absolutely critical. It's going to adapt, or it's going to drive what our editorial and commercial strategy really is. It will drive where we invest, and that is still a challenge. I'd like 20%, 20 times the amount of investment we get to go and do things quicker. But I think really having that laser focus is the most important thing. So driving out where we can deliver more to our communities, I'm very excited about.
All right. I don't have any more questions. I don't know if anyone quickly has any questions from the floor.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Everyone gets
Thank you very much.